Hello, everyone. Today we are proud to have here in our talk Gogo Ekhaya. She's a Sangoma healer from living in America, actually, in USA. And she came to this Sangoma teachings, which is the African spirituality. Hello, Gogo.
Greetings. Hi, how are you?
Yes, fine.
Very curious.
And here's
Exciting.
Saskia. She's my colleague, and I'm Ronald. So we don't know you at all, and you are in America, very far away over the ocean, and we are here in Berlin. So please tell us, what is your story? How did the Sangoma teachings find you, and how was your first encounter with this Sangoma spirituality?
Yes, so I'd like to first start out saying that I give gratitude for being here and being invited to this interview, and for the alignment, the universal alignment of what's taking place here. I was very curious, and I think it was an internal curiosity that was pulling me towards spirituality. And at the time in my life, I had been suffering from lots of different mental health imbalances. And I was a seeker. And so I was looking for different ways of addressing some of my experiences. And I found a beautiful lady who happened to be a Sangoma. I knew nothing about what Sangoma was, but I knew something was calling me towards nature and shamanism. And as I began to seek, there was a podcast kind of like this, or a radio interview show, where Yeye Gogo Nana, a Sangoma priestess who lived in America as well, was talking about her story, and I related to it a lot. And so I decided to get a ancestral divination. And that is a form of oracle reading that is done to almost like an ancient tool of a reading that's done to diagnose the person that is requesting information about their life, about where to go, about guidance. And so I got an ancestral divination from her, and it was quite amazing. She told me everything about my life, didn't know anything, was meeting just like we are meeting here today over a Skype call. And she told me everything, so many things that hit home for me in terms of what I had been going through, what I experienced, and she only knew my name. And then at the end of that call, she said that I also had a calling to become a priestess. And that really resonated with me, because that was like one of the questions that I had written down on my paper, and she kind of like answered all those things for me. And so that was the beginning of my journey, because I knew it struck a chord. I knew that it was something that resonated with my spirit. And also something that was very amazing about that call is she said that you're not crazy. And that's the first time that I heard that. Being in the Western world and mental health facilities and care under the medical model, that was the first time someone told me that I wasn't, crazy, that I didn't have to really go by those labels from a spiritual place. And so that was pretty freeing and liberating for me.
Sure, nice.
Great, yeah. Can you explain what Sangoma is?
Sure.
And what is special about this shamanic tradition?
Mm-hmm. So Sangoma are traditional healers in the Southern African region. South Africa, Swaziland, Mozambique, there's different areas where the healers there are called Sangoma or Iyangas. Iyangas are more of the people who work with the umutis or the herbs, the herbalist. And then you have Sangoma that works with spirit, with ancestral spirit, with the medicines as well, and with all the elements of earth, air, fire, water, and ancestors. And so Sangoma is also called the people of the drum. So we work in ceremony, we work in ritual, we work closely with the ancestral guardians who give us guidance as to how to heal, how to relate and communicate with the elements, how to work with the community, how to resolve issues. And we seek that advice from our ancestral guardians, the ones who have called us to be a priest or priestess in the tradition. So the calling to become a Sangoma comes from usually ancestors that have chosen you, that are in your blood lineage, sometimes not, but also in your blood lineage that have guided you towards this path. And some of those spirits may have been a Sangoma in their lifetime and want to pass the gift down to their daughter, granddaughters, to their relatives. And so Sangomas are entering into that space of ancestral healing to help facilitate healing for the community. And Sangomas are also expert voice hearers and seers. So the gifts can be very wide range, but definitely we use our senses, the ultra sensitivities from the senses to be able to communicate with spirit as well.
Okay. One of your main subjects and important subjects is the treatment of mental illness. Mm-hmm. So what is your view on this, and what is the perspective of the spiritual and indigenous people to this?
Yeah, so it's very interesting because right before I came into seeking shamanism, or right at the same time, I ran into a book by traditional healer Malidoma Somé from West Africa.
I've read it too. Great. Yeah.
And that was a pivotal moment that changed my life in terms of, oh, there is something else, And I feel like it's very much similar. If, I had been in a tribal community, having the experiences that I was having at the time with having ultra sensitivities, feeling tactile sensations, or energies of beings that maybe other people couldn't see. So the first thing that opened up for me was seeing my father, my deceased father. And he was, we had a very trauma-filled relationship. But so when he would appear, it was a very scary thing. It was a very isolating thing for me. To see spirits that have went on, but they were standing in front of me like they were there in real life. And so if I was in a tribal community and I experienced that, I would be able to go directly to a Sangoma or a healer, and they would be able to tell me, oh, okay, this is why your father is showing up. This is what ritual needs to take place. These are what ceremonies needs to take place. And you also have a very beautiful gift that needs to be explored and expressed. And so in living here in America and having these experiences, the first thing you think is, oh my goodness, I'm crazy. I need to see a therapist. I need to see a doctor. And so that is absolutely fine. And that's what I did. I went to get treatments and understanding, but I would only share parts of my journey, because I noticed that as I begin to share, the more suspicious and that the professional across from me became. And maybe I didn't want to be diagnosed with something greater than what I had already, which was like major depressive disorder, PTSD, and then borderline personality disorder. So all these things were coming in, and I thought, well, if I share any more, that's going to be schizophrenia or something even, and I'll be put on more medication, right? So through the lens of spirituality, we're looking at what is the root of the problem spiritually that someone is. Why are they having these experiences? Is it ancestors that are showing up in their life that need help and need support? I knew that now, in retrospect, I knew that my father that was coming also needed some help, and I needed to heal that relationship between us. And that was causing me to be stifled in life, that was causing a heaviness, a dark cloud around me in my energy and in my spirit. And so I participated in all the Western medicine. I was on about over 11 different medications around that time, because they were attempting to try different things that were going to, trying to help resolve my issues. I was in and out of psychiatric wards on long stays. And I feel like if I was in a tribal society, those things would have been avoided. And I also feel very lucky that at some point I was able to come out of that and find another way to process and to heal from my experiences.
So they don't consider it to be really an illness, maybe also.
No, I mean, it's what is in balance. The question is, how can we bring things back into balance? How can we bring your energy? How can we bring your frequencies back into balance? What has triggered it to become out of balance? For me, it was trauma. And a lot of times it is trauma. So there was sexual trauma, there was physical trauma that happened as a young child. And then growing up, not knowing how to release those things, not knowing how to care for myself, not knowing how to heal those specific traumas led to, spiritually, when I look at it, it led to an opening. Those woundings became open and vulnerable, right, to other energies that match that first initial abuse, right? And so those things needed to heal for me on a spiritual level. I need to take a look at the wounding, see what all the bacteria that had been attracted to it, all of those things, and then clean it out. And and then begin to sew the wound and care for the wound, to make sure that it was not vulnerable to anything else, any other energies that were coming in at the time, to create problems for me. And I feel like that it can be done in a therapeutic level and on a spiritual level. And I feel like that, I know we're going to come to that, but it's a whole person process. So there were things that I took from the Western medicine that were very, very good for me, but the medicine of the shamanic work was the work that I needed for my life's path and my destiny.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, the next question is quite complex. I try my best. You had, I just read it out loud. You had yourself a spiritual emergency, a psychosis or mental crisis. Mm-hmm. This is known as shamanic crisis as well. Traditionally, a person who's to become a healer or shaman has to go through the crisis in order to work through her stuff and to really find ways to heal. We kind of talked about it already. How is this psychological crisis connected with enlightenment or awakening and becoming a shaman? I find this question in the sense of enlightenment, kind of specific or interesting, because we know the term of enlightenment traditionally more coming from Asia,
Buddhism. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And yeah.
But this,
how would you describe it?
This crisis is also a prerequisite for a shamanic initiation, sort of, no?
Yes, absolutely. So the term that comes to me is awakening. Waking up from a dark sleep, you know, and then uncovering what is hidden in that darkness, and being able to blink the eyes until they're beginning to open. And I feel like we go in and out of awakening. We go back to sleep sometimes, so we wake up, and this is a process for us in terms of healing. And so absolutely, the process is not the same for every person that has a shamanic calling. Sometimes, you know, I have friends that have had a very physical illness where something was happening within the body that carried them and led them to where no doctor, no Western doctor could treat them or understand what was happening or help them to recover. But as soon as they went to a shamanic tradition or a Sangoma, then they were able to just be healed through one ceremony or through several different ceremonies. So the calling can be very mental, it can be very spiritual, it can be having, you know, lots of bad luck in the lifetime where it's just happening over and over again and you don't understand why. So it can come, and there is a prerequisite, so to speak, in terms of coming from a wounding, out of that wounding into a rites of passage to become who you truly are, which is a healer. And I feel like the process was definitely waking up to my purpose, waking up to who I am, and being able to navigate those shadow, the darker realms, the illness, so that I could come out and be able to service my community from a relational way, from I have experienced this, and now because of my experiences, I can also help to serve the community.
Yeah, that's the point. You have to go through this crisis in order to find out what healing means, no? And to find a way out of this suffering and out of the disease to recovery, and then you can become a healer. I think this is a general way of shamanic wisdom journey. And we know that it's in different traditions and cultures, in all these different shamanic cultures, it's similar, no? And it's maybe also an anthropological type of thing which happens to a human in general. So, but now my question is also, is there anything specific in the African approach, in African spirituality? Is there something for you which is very special, or which helps to find your connection to the source of divinity?
Mm-hmm. So I've traveled, you know, all around the world and have visited different shamanic traditions, and I realized that there really is no disconnect. That there's so many, there's way more similarities than there is differences, and so the one of the things that I appreciate about Sangoma tradition is the many ways that we do connect to our ancestors and to spirit. And one of my favorite ways is inside the dream world, and being able to receive dreams that so let me start the process from during initiation is usually led based on your dreams. You don't go into the next level of medicine or to the next level of your experiences until you've had certain dreams that only your teacher or your elders or the elders of the community would know what those dreams are and how to interpret them. And so the beautiful thing is, for me personally, was experiencing being told certain things in my dreams or in the vision state, and then expressing them to my elders and to the community, and seeing how that was so connected to the experience of initiation and going on to that led me to eventually completion of becoming a bona fide Sangoma practitioner. So the dream world is really beautiful and important. Also really love all of the different ceremonies. So we have a particular ceremony in the lineage that I come from, which is called Gita ceremony, where there's sacred dancing that is done to enter into trance states so that we can connect to the community, bring messages to the community, and also heal ourselves in the community. So, and these things, again, are done all over the world, and everywhere that I've touched base, these things are very much normal in the traditions. And that's what I love, is seeing the connection to everything.
So the next question is there any difference between the Western and the African worldview?
Yeah. Yes. I noticed that during my own initiation, what my teacher absolutely shared with me, and her also being born here in America and understanding that ancestors in her lineage had called her to go to Africa to pick up the memory, pick up the tradition. And I think the difference between was the difference between the Western mind and the indigenous mindset. So in one thing that I was taught that I had to begin to lose is that as I'm entering into this indigenous practice, that I have to let go of who I think I am. All the things that have accumulated me up until that moment. I was a mother of 3. I'm an adult, all of these things. I've done this and traveled here and done those things. And I had to really let go of all those experiences in order to absorb, I would say something new, but something old that was also within me, in the DNA, in my ancestral memory. And so becoming a baby again, looking at the world with new eyes. One of the things that I noticed that I did a lot, and a lot of us do, is in the Western mind, it's a lot of the Q&A, the questioning, and why do we do this, and what is this for, and all this, and really the indigenous way is looking at things and observing and quieting and sitting still and watching your elders, watching your teachers, watching how things are done, and learning that way, as opposed to a lot of communication. And so those are that's one of the differences that I see. I also see not only in Africa, but all over the world, the difference in bringing the intellect down into the heart space and humbling ourselves. I was recently in Thailand, and the way that they greet people is not just hello, but they do this every time, right? And when you're leaving, they do this, and it's so beautiful to see that connection and that humility. And even in Africa, when we greet someone, we say "Tokoza." We do that when we see a shaman or an elder or someone that is that has spiritual status in the community. And I really appreciate the reminder of what humility is, and how to bring balance from the mental aspect into the heart space as well.
Mm-hmm. Would you say that Sangoma teachings are suitable for everyone?
Mm-hmm. Teachings are suitable for everyone, absolutely. It's, we are all human. We have the same experiences all around the world. If you're talking about people who are called into the tradition, who become priestess or priest into the tradition. I've seen many different people from all over the world and all over in many different cultures, where their own particular ancestors have called them into the tradition to learn something about who they are. And I also, just a reminder, I also do a lot of burping when the spirits are close to me. So no disrespect, just a part of the work. And so, yes, I would say that the calling is not just about what's on the outside, what's on the outside. It's about really what's on the inside. And how your ancestors, how your own lineage may choose to use a certain pathway to get you to remember who you are. So yes, I would say for everyone.
Nice.
Did you alter the process to suit you and your patients? Or are you doing the treatment strictly the traditional way?
Yeah, I feel like each healer always learns the fundamentals, the traditional way of doing things. And we also have to remember that we are evolving in our modern society. And so you will learn fundamentals from your elders, from your ancestors, of how to carry the traditions forward in a way that respects the lineage, that respects the ancestral guardians that are holding the space for this work to be done. And then, so not only that you're learning from your teachers, you're learning from your ancestors, and your ancestors may have a particular way that they've done ritual or ceremony that they want you to include. So my work may not look like exactly like the next Sangoma's work, but the fundamentals are the same. We are being guided by different spirits, different tribes, different guardians. And so the work, I would say the traditional work is always upheld, but the fundamentals are always upheld, but the ancestors always make way, and we always make room in terms of what's happening in modern day society and how those traditions can apply to now.
So you talked already, you mentioned already several times the ancestors. I think they are very important for you. How important are they, and how do you connect with them?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So with ancestors, we connect, we use many different things that help us to connect with ancestors. One of the ways that we connect with ancestors is using a particular herb. This herb is sort of like, it's a burnt offering, so we will burn it. You know how some people will burn a sage or burn a palo santo or something like this. We burn a specific herb called impepo. Impepo grows all around the world, but there's hundreds of different species in Africa. And a few of those species have a certain ability, a spiritual ability to connect you to the ancestral realm. And so we burn this impepo, the sacred herb, to be able to communicate with our ancestors, to pray with it. It's almost like I heard this, it's almost like the telephone line to communication to the ancestral realm. So we use impepo. We also have altars and shrines dedicated to our ancestral guardians once we get to deeper in the work. We also definitely communicate in dreams. We go in trance states. We call. One of the things that I think is really special about the tradition is how sometimes we call our ancestors in. And you know, sometimes if you think of the thing that I can closely relate it to is, you know, how a wolf will howl to the moon. and we have a particular ritual where there's almost this howling type vibration where we call our ancestors in to be with us at a certain time, and that's really special. So there's many different ways that we connect, but basically through prayer and through working with Impeto.
Darf ich noch eine Frage stellen vorher? So these are the plane of the ancestors. There are also gods and goddesses, and do you have a highest god or a highest goddess? How is it in your tradition?
Yes, we absolutely believe in the creator. And one of the terms for our God is Nkulu Nkulu, which is the masculine aspect. There's a feminine and masculine aspect of God. And so there's many different ways that people communicate with the Great Spirit or Nkulu Nkulu. They say some people believe, or some traditions or lineages from Sangoma believe, that any one person cannot go straight to the creator, that there has to be special priestess and priests that can do certain things and fast for a long period of time and then go to the mountain to seek that energy. But we use our ancestors as the mediator between those realms, between the creator and us. And we also believe that I can speak for myself that I believe that the goddess energy is within and can be contacted from within as well. So yes, we absolutely have that energy of goddess that we work with.
How has being a woman impacted your experience of becoming and being a priestess?
Yeah. Really beautiful question. When I first went so my teacher is a woman, and who carries very masculine spirits with her, and I do too. and it's interesting to see her transform at the beginning, to see her transform from feminine to masculine and masculine and femininity. And I noticed that when I first went to South Africa and saw the people, there's not this this big ordeal around what men should do and what women should do, because we truly believe that we have all of every part of that within us, both the masculine and the feminine, and it's celebrated. And when I went to South Africa for the first time, I noticed that a lot of the Sangomas are women. And where it is that Isangoma was very matriarchal tradition. There are men that are definitely a part of the tradition, but I thought that was so beautiful to see, because a lot of times when you go to different places, it's very masculine led. Shamanism is very masculine led. And in South Africa, I would say I saw so many women leading the community still to this day. And even in here in my initiation, it was a house full of women. So it's very feminine led and affirmed. So I feel like that was really impactful and empowering to see the feminine energy lead. And I think it's important. And that's why I feel like Sangoma is coming out from just Africa into the world, because we do as a whole need to shift into honoring the divine feminine and bringing the feminine energy into the forefront, so that the changes that the earth and our society is asking for can be done through the power of the divine feminine.
Jetzt noch was
nachsetzen
dazu?
No, actually, my second question was very well included. You took it in naturally. Thank you very much. Yeah.
So we come to another topic. It's about the conventional medicine. Western medicine. So what is your opinion about it? Do you also use it, or is there any intersection to your treatments, or in case a person cannot be treated with your healing techniques, so do you combine it?
So I've worked with many people who see Western doctors or are on medication themselves and also do the shamanic work. And I think it's important to allow the person to experience whole person care. You know, we talk about whole person care in the medical model. We're starting to talk about that here in America. But I really feel like what I took from being a peer specialist, which was a mental health a counselor, is that we do need to, in overall wellness, we have to be able to appreciate all the dimensions that make us well, which is, you know, our social well-being, our environmental well-being, the things around our financial well-being and being able to create for ourselves, our creative well-being, also our spiritual well-being. And so I don't shun Western practices in terms of medicine. For me, it was not what helped me or facilitated the actual medication. It did more detriment for me than it did good. But I have seen where, and I've worked with many people that we do both things. They see a Western doctor and they also come to see me, and it works well. So I encourage people who feel like they need more of a therapeutic thing to go actually get a therapist, you know, while working with me. And there's some people who have been in the Western treatment that come and say, okay, I'm done with that. You know, let's see if this will work, you know, and I respect each person's decision in terms of how they move. So I think it's important. I still think that therapy has definitely a lot of benefits that can help people process through their experiences. And I also have seen where people have done the shamanic work and being able to titrate and come off of their medications as well.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. Did you ever have a kind of cooperation with a Western doctor, physician, whoever?
Yeah, no, I don't, not directly, no.
Mm-hmm.
I have met a lot of beautiful therapists that are open to spirituality and actually do a lot of talks and presentations around people in the professional realm. But that is a goal, that we have a link where, because I've talked to some professionals that have said, well, you know, based on your story, I've seen people that are similar to you, and I wish I could have a process of referral system, but because of the environment that I work in, that's not allowed. You know, so I hope that one day this can be something that we can do, and we can have a working relationship with each other. I think it would be just amazing and beneficial for our communities.
Yes, that would be great, but nowadays it's really not accepted in the official medical healthcare.
But in Canada, they do. In some hospitals, they cooperate with traditional Indigenous native healers.
Yes. Yeah.
And I've seen it also in Tuva, that small country between Russia and Mongolia.
Mm.
Also cooperating with both sides. Mm.
I think it's beautiful. When I was in, when I was actually hospitalized in psychiatric unit, I think it's becoming more open. You know, it used to be back in the day, it was the chaplain was always a Christian or Catholic person that came in the Western hospitals here. And when I was there years ago, there was a Buddhist and a person who taught Tai Chi. So there was a little bit of the Asian influence that came in. And so I see there is some bits of development and it reaching towards that. So it's beautiful.
Jetzt bin ich dran, ich glaube schon, oder? What can people do in their daily life to improve their health and well-being when they don't have access to Sangoma teachings?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I always recommend to start with connecting with the elements. One of the questions that you talked about earlier, and I wanted to expound on, was, do we have gods and goddesses? Do we have, yes, and those gods and goddesses that we practice under are spirits of the water, or spirits of the mountains, or spirits of the earth. And sometimes those spirits can bring through further dreaming or prophecy, or helping us on our awakening and our journey. And I feel like, as the collective humans, is that the way that we remember our destiny, the way that we remember our purpose, the way that we're able to connect back to the nature within us, is to connect with nature and to bring those elements back into the forefront of our lives. We are, so consumed with everything that's happening with, technology and all of these things that are coming forward, and that's also beautiful, and it's moving us into a really interesting state. But we have to remember how to listen to the spirits of the trees and listen to the wind and experience this deeper connection that our ancestors always used as a guide to be able to communicate with nature, to be able to communicate with the divine spirits of the nature, and to communicate with our ancestors. So I say reconnect back to nature, get out there, meditate, become one with nature again.
Can you describe what happened in your spiritual opening?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So when I talked a little bit about it. I think what happened for me is that my vision became open. So not only the two eyes, but the vision into the spirit realm became blended with this physical realm. And that opening sent me into different emotions, it sent me down really the dark night of the soul, into a very depressive state, a very fearful state, a very paranoid state. And I needed someone that could help me to navigate those experiences. And I felt like through Sangoma work, and when I went through initiation, because it was still happening at the beginning of my initiation, and my teacher was helping me to understand how to stay centered and balanced and navigate those realms. So when the fears came up, when the dark night of the soul energies came up, when the darker spirits came through, of how to sit strong, and how to learn how to elevate those energies within my spirit. And we used a lot of purging medicines. So I would purge a lot, actually vomit. We used many different medicines and herbs that helped to treat the spiritual illness, or the spiritual illness that I would say that was happening. And then the opening, so even with hearing voices, that opening, when the darker voices would come and tell me to maybe self-harm or do something that wasn't beneficial for my well-being, after using the herbs and being in drumming ceremonies and following the beat of the drum and connecting with my ancestral guardians of light, these voices began to attune to a higher frequency, and I was able to hear the voices of my ancestral guardians, which were telling me, okay, this is what you do now. this is how you combat this thing. This is how you begin to keep your torch burning through the darkness. And I began to receive all this information and all these tools to be able to navigate that realm more successfully than I had in the past, which created chaos and imbalance on the outside. And I was diving deeper into my internal world through the medicines, through the rituals, through this drumming, to come out of that. And I feel like, and the big shift for me is when I was able to hear the voice of my ancestors, and they would tell me something about what was next for me, or tell me something what was next for someone else, or how to work with someone. One of the interesting things that I just want to mention is that during Sangoma process, we have there's a ritual that's almost like a test to see how you're connecting with your ancestors, your ancestral guardians. And the community will hide something from you. It could be any type of object, anything man-made or naturally made, and would go and hide it. It can hide it inside the house, outside of the house, down the street, wherever. And you would have to connect to the energy of voice hearing, right? Mm-hmm. Or what Western medicine would say, auditory hallucination. Mm-hmm. But you would have to connect with that, and or whatever your gift was. So if it was the vision, or if it was feeling, you would connect to that energy to be able to communicate with your ancestors, and they would tell you the exact color of the object, what the object was, and where to go find it. And as soon as you were able to communicate that to your elders, you could go get the item and bring it back. And then that was the confirmation that, yes, this is working. Like, this is not anything that's made up. My experiences in the past, like all the things that people told me, years and years, that you're just ill, this needs to be like suppressed, and it was suppressed through the medications. All of those things were reaffirmed in a different way, that no, this is really a beautiful gift. And we just need to learn how to cultivate it. We needed to learn how to reconnect to nature. We need to learn how to work with the medicines again and the ancient ways, and bring up that memory, the ancestral memory within you, so that you can really see clearly. And so, yes, that was a part of my awakening experience.
Wow, this is really a practical approval that it works when you can find the item which is hidden by your community.
Yeah.
You see, this is real stuff, no? It's not just imagination. Yeah,
the affirmations are important in terms of just getting you out of what you've been told into really trusting your process. Yeah.
I said imagination.
Mm-hmm.
You understood affirmation, isn't it?
Yes.
No, it's not just imagination.
Yes.
It's
yes.
a whole process.
Mm-hmm. Yes, very true.
So my next question fits to this, because this is a very different worldview model, this shamanic way of seeing reality. So how does it work with the Western worldview model in your life? Where are the differences, and where are the connecting points?
Mm-hmm.
Is it very contradictory, or can you combine it?
I think sometimes it can be contradictory. Where I see the Western medicine and traditional medicine merging is, I really feel like through trauma informed practices. Like the idea in therapeutic communities around, and what we're coming to learn around trauma, I think really is important and relates so much to ancestral healing, right? Because we have historical traumas, right? We have ancestral traumas. And those two things, I feel like the therapeutic community has always recognized trauma and beginning to understand more and more about how trauma sits in the body, how trauma leads us, and those memories lead our decision making and our ability to come out of different mindsets and stories. And I feel like the shamanic world, we also look at those same type of traumas and help people to come out of the stories, to help people to disengage and also at the same time re-engage with the story so that it can be healed, that it can be translated and elevated into a powerful healing and a tool to come into acceptance of whatever traumas that have come into our lives, whether it's happened in our lives or is it in historical trauma. And I relate that also to maybe even genetics, or when you go into the doctor, they ask you, what's happened on your mother's side of the family? Did your mother or your father have heart disease, or was there diabetes in the family? There's always this look of like, what is happening, what's happened in the past. And when you come to a Sangoma, we ask you your last name on your paternal side and your maternal side. And then we are, just by that information, we're able to enter into a space where we're reviewing the ancestors to see what traumas they held, what happened in their lives at the time, how is that affecting you right now? And I feel like those are the similarities. Even though we look at it differently, it's the same thing. It's like looking at it from a spiritual place and looking at it from a physical place. Yeah.
What kind of people come to visit you for your treatment?
Okay. I smile because I have so many beautiful people, and I feel very blessed to meet so many beautiful people from all around the world who I'm able to work with and witness their growth and their healing. So I would say about 50% or more are people who have been in the mental health system or have some kind of mental health diagnosis by Western medicine that come to seek and to maybe go beyond their diagnosis to see what's happening spiritually for them. And the other part of that, the other people that I see are definitely people that are realizing that they're in an awakening experience. So they are having a Umbelini experience. Umbelini is the same thing as Kundalini. It's just a Zulu word for it. And so they're having a Kundalini experience, or they're dreaming more and they want to deepen their dream space because they want to understand what's happening. Or they're seeing the synchronicities in life and attribute it to something that's spiritual and are looking for guidance. So I get a lot of people that are awakening, and I feel as a collective, as a human collective, we are here in this moment to really awaken together and help each other see who we truly are, so that we can begin to shift the vibration of this planet and of our human family, so that we can continue to evolve in a really beautiful way. Yeah.
Yes, so, ja, ich weiß, das wird eigentlich, diese Frage wird es auch gut passen, ne? So, you already mentioned now this, to make a shift on the planet also, and to help to improve the whole situation. So what do you consider are the main problems nowadays in society, and what do you recommend to face these challenges?
Yeah, I because of the work that I do, I like to speak from the ancestral space. And because I feel like it's a part of the work. And I think we as human beings, one of the things that I've been also driven to do is ancestral healing, and having those really tough conversations about our ancestors and what our ancestors have done in the past. Not saying that, like, being okay with just being able to have reconciliation from a spiritual level with our ancestral past. So for instance, I am of African descent. My ancestors came over from Africa into America, but a lot of them came over because of slavery. And in America, some of the white people have come from direct descendants of slave holders, like people who were slave masters. And I have been through beautiful experiences with human beings on the planet where we were able to come to a resolve and a deep healing and acknowledgement of where we come from, what are the great things that our ancestors did and the horrible things that our ancestors did, and have those really uncomfortable, not only conversations, but have that spiritual experience in ceremony, holding space for grieving, holding space for compassion, holding space for unconditional love, holding space for acceptance, holding space for healing between the two. And I experienced on a personal level, and I pray that in the future that this is something that we can begin to do, because I think that the things that we're seeing on in America, you know, probably all over the world, the disparities that we're seeing has to attribute to this unsaid, you know, spaces that we haven't healed from an ancestral space, those woundings that are still there. So I feel like the acknowledgement of what ancestors have done, both good and bad, are so important in our journey as people and as healing as a collective and coming together. And I hope that we can continue to have these powerful healings so that we can see the true connection and the oneness between us all as human beings.
Thank you.
Mm.
I think it's a good Schluss, oder?
Yeah.
Mm.
Mm.
I think this is very nice what we have heard. So we want to thank you
very much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So we hope we can all work together for the healing of the planet,
Mm-hmm.
the Earth,
Mm-hmm.
and for all this pain and violence and suffering what happened in the world before, and to heal also this grief and what you told about.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you. And I wish you much success in the work that you're doing as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And hopefully we will come together next time again.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I look forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
All the best for you.
Many blessings to close out.